Although I like to joke about the absurdity of many of the weird conspiracy theories that I talk about on the show, there is a danger involved. The latest example, of course, involves a family member of an Idaho COVID-19 patient who would threaten a doctor who wouldn't treat the patient with ivermectin. So now, again, I joke about the horsey paste and oh, they're injecting vaccine into your salad. No, none of that is true. But there are people out there that actually do believe it, and sometimes they are driven to doing insane things. So now, as I mentioned, ivermectin is an anti-parasitic treatment for things like river blindness, lice. It can be used in humans for such purposes. And it's also an effective treatment for viral infections. I'm sorry, not an effective treatment for viral infections, but it is an effective treatment at getting rid of parasites like worms in horses and cattle and sheep, right? So now the drug is safe and effective at treating parasitic infections, but it has not been proven to be an effective treatment for viral infections such as SARS-CoV-2 and coronaviruses. And so, in fact, studies have suggested that the amount of ivermectin needed to be effective at killing a virus such as SARS-CoV-2 would be massively unsafe for humans. So you would have to take so much of it that it would not only kill the virus, but it will also kill you. And so that's the danger with ivermectin. Okay. And so now, regardless of this, conservative media has latched onto this being the cure of all cures. And oh my God, they don't want us to have the ivermectin because it actually works. They want us to take this vaccine, which apparently doesn't work. You know, half of all humanity has been vaccinated at this point, right? Like, it seems to work. Seems to be pretty effective. And especially in the fact when you look at how many people are in the hospital that are unvaccinated compared to the vaccinated, it's somewhere like 99.5%. Anyway, so now, as I said, they latched onto this as a result of conspiracy theories aided by misleading and faulty studies that have come out and then retracted, spread by certain YouTube and Fox News hosts who don't know what they're talking about. And that's being kind, by the way. As a result of all this conspiracy mongering, along with the anti-vax sentiments led to Dr. Ashley Carvalho being physically threatened over her refusal to administer ivermectin, which could likely do more harm to the patient than good. BuzzFeed News reports that police had to remove a man's son-in-law from the hospital after he told her, quote, "If you don't do this, I have a lot of ways to get people to do something, and they're all sitting in my gun safe at home." Of course, it always comes back to threats when it comes to conspiracies, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Again, this reminds me of the QAnon guy who, again, was armed, had a gun, busted into the Comet Pizza saying, "Oh, you better release all them kids that are in the basement." Problem is, there wasn't any kids in the basement. There wasn't even a basement. Didn't exist. And the guy's like, "Well, I was trying to save the children from being trafficked." You don't understand. Well, the thing is, and the sad reality is that there is child trafficking that happens in this world, and it is awful, it is horrible, but it's likely not happening at your local pizzeria. It's not happening in places that are just run by Democrats. Okay? No, the sad truth about trafficking is that it happens everywhere. It does. Red states, blue states, it doesn't actually matter. The United States, and this is a startling fact, the United States, along with Mexico and the Philippines, was ranked one of the world's worst places for human trafficking back in 2018. The three states that have the highest amount of human trafficking are California, Florida, and Texas. Two of the top cities, Washington, D.C., and Las Vegas. Now, part of that, of course, in Las Vegas, for example, and in other places, is due to the high amount of homeless people. So perhaps if we were to do something about homelessness, we could actually reduce the amount of people being trafficked. That said, there's no official number of victims, but estimates place it in the hundreds of thousands. Certainly a very real thing that happens. Unfortunately, since we know so little about it happening and the instances, it is very fertile ground for conspiracy theorists. And why? Well, I mean, for one, it actually does come out of a real, genuine place of caring. Okay, people do want to do something about this. They want to help innocent victims. They want to help, especially children. Unfortunately, these conspiracies tend to lead you down into some pretty dark places. Okay, and ended up actually hurting the people that you're trying to help by taking attention away from real cases. When it comes to COVID and you know, COVID denialism and anti-vax sentiments, you see a similar trend. It actually ends up hurting people in the end. I mean, and unfortunately, I've looked at sort of the pathology of conspiracy theories, and it usually ends up people thinking that they're smarter than everyone else. Oh, I know the truth. I'm unique. I'm special. The internet man, he told me so. He just confirmed what I already knew. And he told me to not trust you and any of your witchcraft science because that's the thing that's going to harm me. No. And another thing that's important about this is identity. I read something earlier today doing the research for the show, and there are people who are outwardly anti-vax that would sneak in to get their vaccination. And the reason that they would do this is that they didn't want their friends or family or neighbors to know that they were getting vaccinated because there was such a strong identity there of, oh no, you must resist a vaccine. It's tyranny. Please give me the vaccine, please. Please. Just put it right in real quick. Then I can get back to yelling about how vaccines are horrible. It kind of reminds me, of course, of people, you know, people who consider themselves pro-life, secretly sneaking away to get abortions or taking the morning after pill. So it's one of those things. It's all about identity. It's all about politics. And, you know, they think, oh, no, see, here's the thing. That anti-vax sentiment has become a political identity, mainly on the right and for some in the supposed left. No, if you don't take the vaccine, you're pure. You're literally calling themselves purebloods. You're better than others. If you take it, it means you're a weak man. It means you're giving into fear. Gee, I wonder where anybody would get that idea.
The point of mandatory vaccination is to identify the sincere Christians in the ranks, the free thinkers, the men with high testosterone levels, and anyone else who does not love Joe Biden and make them leave immediately. It's a takeover of the U.S. military.
Oh, right. That. I love how he throws in men with high testosterone. What does that have to do with anything? It has to do with nothing. Nothing at all. But it does make them believe, well, I've got high testosterone. I'm a man. I don't need no stinking vaccine. I'm a real man. Yeah. It's another example of more conspiracies, courtesy of course, Fox News. And that's why people are either not taking the vaccine or they're doing it in secret because it's a political club, it's a cult, it's an identity. It is not based on reality or science. Now, I want to go to this doctor. Here's a quick quote from her. She says this: I think it's just kind of a hopeless feeling. Speaking of the hostility that comes from some patients, families directed at healthcare workers. And I get that. And I think that plays into it as well. Unfortunately, not only is she personally burnt out from dealing with all the time with patients before we had a vaccine, but now even more so, despite the fact that we do have a vaccine, that this is easily preventable, the stuff that she's seeing now and today. In fact, BuzzFeed's David Mack writes about Idaho and how they currently have the lowest vaccination rate in the country. And the number of vaccine doses administered has not been climbing significantly, but infections have. As of Saturday, there were 686 patients hospitalized in the state, COVID, 180 of them in the ICUs. And that's actually hundreds more than what flooded hospitals during the previous surge in December 2020, before safe and effective vaccines were widely available. So they are just not taking it. And of course, that is a mixture of anti-vax sentiments and the Delta variant, which is much, much more infectious than it was before. Now, she also adds and talks about this. Last year at this time, I was very anxious about COVID. Being in the medical field, I understand. And I was just hoping for the day when we'd have a vaccine. It never occurred to me that there would be a day when we have a vaccine. And I'm actually more anxious now because we have something that can really prevent this, and people just aren't taking it. I share that frustration. I share it. That people have allowed their political identity to be placed above their own well-being and factual information. Unfortunately, that happens to be the nature of, right now, conspiracy theories, political identity, and polarization in this country. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.